The police are continuing their investigations. They're continuing to examine Royal Lodge. They will then move on and look for other documents elsewhere. After all, he was trade envoy for 10 years, started 25 years ago, I think. And so there's plenty of material in government archives, in government records, perhaps in palace records, that they will want to look through before they can decide whether they have enough evidence. But in the meantime, as far as we know, he's free to carry on with his life and wait to see what happens. It is quite a performance. So I think this arrangement now really gets round that problem. He's free to carry on with his life. He's not going to go anywhere. He's not a flight risk. He can carry on. They will carry on. And obviously they will want to proceed as quickly as possible. Everybody will. But as far as I can see, there are no restrictions, no time limits. It's all being dealt with in rather a civilized way. They must do their job. And he just waits, as I say, to see whether they will find enough evidence, whether he's actually going to be charged at some point in the future. No surprise he wasn't charged yesterday. The police clearly don't have enough evidence for that. And he will then respond, if he is charged, to the proceedings, which will no doubt, if that goes that far, take him to court. Saying yesterday, this is what lawyers call a common law offence, laid down by the judges over the centuries, and one which is perhaps in some ways rather vague. And so the Crown Prosecution Service will be advising the police on the sort of evidence they need to look for. To be fair, let's start with the first requirement. It applies to a public officer. Now, what does that mean? Somebody who holds public office. It's been applied in the past to police officers, to prison officers who behave improperly, occasionally perhaps to government ministers, members of parliament, others who have high office in some public position. I think it would probably apply to a trade envoy, but then you have to show that the public officer was acting as such, so acting in his role as a trade envoy. Then you've got to show that he willfully neglected to perform his duty or willfully misconducted himself. Well, what was his duty? He might say his duty was to ensure that the trading position of the United Kingdom was enhanced by what he was doing, and it was really up to him to judge when to pass on information to people in order to generate trade. It also has to be done to such a degree as to amount to an abuse of the public's trust in the office holder. How does one define the level of public trust required? And of course, without reasonable excuse or justification. So that's a defence that he could put. He could say he was acting reasonably.
What's your reaction to your brother's arrest, sir? Sir, what's your reaction to your brother's arrest? Any reaction to your brother's arrest, sir?
Have you spoken to your brother, Your Majesty?
Then it will be tried ultimately in the Crown Court. It's not something that can be tried by magistrates. It's what we call an indictable offence, one that can be tried only by a judge and jury. And obviously, if there were to be a trial and the trial goes ahead, he would be represented by counsel and the prosecution would be represented and they would try to argue their case. And it's more complicated because at some point they've got to prove to the court, perhaps at a pre-trial hearing, that this does come within that definition. And that requires going back through past decided cases. And so that could be quite a complicated process. What all this means is it's going to take many months, perhaps even years.
Okay. I got a question about something big overseas today. The former Prince Andrew arrested by the police there, related to something with Jeffrey Epstein. Do you think people in this country at some point, associates of Jeffrey Epstein, will wind up in handcuffs too?
Well, you know, I'm the expert in a way because I've been totally exonerated. That's very nice. So I can actually speak about it very nicely. I think it's a shame. I think it's very sad. I think it's so bad for the royal family. It's a very, very sad. To me, it's a very sad thing. When I see that, it's a very sad thing. To see it and to see what's going on with his brother, who's obviously coming to our country very soon, and he's a fantastic man, the king. So I think it's a very sad thing. It's really interesting because nobody used to speak about Epstein when he was alive, but now they speak. But I'm the one that can talk about it because I've been totally exonerated. I did nothing. In fact, the opposite. He was against me. He was fighting me in the election, which I just found out through the last 3 million pages of documents. Yeah, please. Yeah, please.
You said today on Iran, bad things will happen if
Yeah,
Iran
bad
doesn't
things,
make
really
a
bad
deal.
things.
What will that
I'm not going to talk to you about that.
Okay, can you explain though, what is the goal if there is a U.S. military
Well, we're
strike?
going to make a deal or we're going to get a deal one way or the other.
But with a military strike, is it to wipe out their nuclear
I'm not going
program?
to talk to you about that, but we're either going to get a deal or it's going to be unfortunate for them.
And you said today 10 days. Have you given them a deadline firm to make a deal?
I would think that would be enough time, 10, 15 days, pretty much maximum.